This is something to talk about from the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center. We're sponsored by Fieldstone Memory Care of Bainbridge Island. Fieldstone offers innovative and compassionate care, and they're now accepting residents. To tour Fieldstone's beautifully appointed apartments on Rolling Bay today, call this number, 360-271-2530. And today I'm very happy to welcome Warren Pollock, who is going to talk a little bit about a life-transforming transition. Warren, you are a woodworker now. You've done some work at the barn, but that isn't something you might have predicted a few years ago, right?
That's right. I'm an architect by profession, and I retired about 5.5 years ago. Decided to move. I sold my house in Seattle, decided to move to Bainbridge Island. I knew this was a great place, and it turned out it really was. But when I retired, I had no idea what I was going to do with my time. And lots of people ask me, well, now that you're retired, what are you going to do? And I couldn't, I don't know what I'm going to do. Just wait and see what happens. So when I came over here, one thing I've always done as a hobby is to do sketches. Any place I went on vacation, I used to draw all the time as an architect, draw buildings. But I've been in the habit of sketching places I've gone for most of my life. My mom was an artist, an art teacher, and she did that. When I was a little kid, I thought everybody did that, but it turns out they don't. Anyway, so I thought, well, at least I can do that. So I started a drawing series of things. I decided to try to find things on the island that were common, but to draw them from an unusual point of view, so that they might have people would recognize what they were, but they never had seen it in quite that light before. And I had under my bed when I moved over here, a bunch of old paper and art things. I had a stack of watercolor paper my mom bought in France in 1975. It's Archie's watercolor paper. And I thought, I should draw something on that instead of wasting it. So that's what got me started. The first thing I did was, this drawing is the walkway under the ferry. Now, everyone's walked over this walkway, but not very many people go down to the beach and look up from underneath.
Right.
And so this is the first thing I did, and that made me think, well, okay, I'm going to keep going along that vein. So, this is my troll series under the bridge. Again, this is underneath the bridge from the island. So the first two things I did were the way on and off the island. Yeah, these are just prints. The originals are about 2 feet by 3 feet. They're pretty good size. Okay. So then I went across Eagle Harbor to the south side and drew this bunch of, all these pilings are sticking up out of the water. It kind of makes you wonder what they were ever for. But this was an interesting thing to draw because the pilings have reflections and shadows, and you can see them underwater. So it's all three.
So this is in the South Beach area somewhere?
Yes. Again, there's not very much color in this, mostly black and white, a little touch of color. So then I took a walk down the waterfront to the end of the walkway, where at the west end, it kind of curves a little bit. And I was with my wife and my dog, and she was wearing pink pants that day. So, and you can see, I like dark and light. So these, the shadows are real strong. I'm always looking for pictures that have high contrast.
Those are great.
Warren, did you take photographs first and then draw from there?
Yes.
Okay.
I did. And there's a reason for that I can explain here. This is the Japanese memorial. And it is it's just part of it, of course, but you see those little, the folded cranes in color. You know, when I was really struck by those, and I imagined that children folded those. I think that's where they came from. And I imagine maybe they're the children are the descendants of people who were interned. So the memorial is in black and white, like ash. It's old, that's gone. And the color is the new life of the children that have survived it. That was the idea of the drawing.
Yes, and I know that also there are children in the schools who have helped to fold those cranes too.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful
side
memorial.
story I can tell us on another time. My father was in an internment camp. He was working there. He wasn't a Japanese person interned. This is a day I was the last car onto the ferry.
That is always a wonderful feeling.
Yeah. And so when I look back, there was nobody behind me, no cars and no workers either. And I had just gotten back from a trip to Italy looking at churches, and I thought this, oddly enough, it looked like the structure of a church, which is not what comes to mind when you're on the ferry. But, you know, it just had that feeling to me. And, you know, it made me look at the structure of the boat, which is really interesting. And usually it's not something you usually think about when you're on the ferry. So this kind of fit that, you know, it was like an unusual take of something that's very common.
Yes, we definitely see a lot of pictures on Facebook of the ferry with the mountain behind it. But
Yes.
This is a very, like all of these sketches,
There's a
they show
completely
your
different view
interest
of
in,
that. It
they
is.
show your interest in structure and design.
Yeah, you can see my architectural background here, that's the piece of the ferry I was so interested in. So now, those were before COVID, no people in the drawings. And I never put people in my drawings. As an architect, for some reason, their architectural renderings never show people. Even photographs of architecture don't show people. So I never showed people. I didn't know how to draw. So now COVID strikes and I'm at home trying to figure out what to do with my time. So I continued drawing. Only there's something different about this that I did not realize until a few months ago. Now they have people in there. Well, why would I do that? Well, because I'm stranded in my house, I can't see anybody. So it's like I'm drawing people now. And I did it without realizing that was what was going on. But I looked long and hard for a view of the store that would be interesting structure. And I couldn't find something to draw exactly. And then it occurred to me that what the store really is the people. You know, that's what we like about it. It's the town center. You always see your friends there and recognize people. So I decided to do a drawing of the people that hang out at the store. And the people have the color. The store is black and white. Speaking of the,
Is that TNC?
that is TNC.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a nice reflection of it as a town center. We were talking a little bit before we got on about how grateful we are that the remodel happened there, because it's a meeting place, it's a hangout place, and definitely during COVID, all those outdoor tables were getting a lot of use.
Yes, they were. So I also used to, until COVID, I used to travel to Italy a couple times a year. This is in Milan. This is the square in front, the open space in front of the cathedral in Milan. It's always filled with people. And it was on a real bright day with strong shadows. And you can see the texture of the watercolor paper creates this sort of texture in the, you know, it looks like the tile, but it's the texture of the paper. The black ink doesn't show any texture at all. So you get sort of the combination, a rough look from the color and then real crisp black and white. This is an interesting drawing because this is about the light, but the light is the thing you don't draw. The light is the area that I haven't done anything to. Although, you know, so the way you draw the light is to draw everything that's not light and leave that alone. That's sort of the trick watercolorists do that.
Yeah, and is this something that that you developed as you were starting to draw more seriously in retirement, or?
Yes, it is. It is, and it's filled with people.
Yeah.
And this thing is big. This is 40 inches tall by about 26 inches wide. This is a big piece. This is Venice. And I love Venice. And people think it's just a tourist trap, but it's the most interesting city in Italy, I think. I've been there 8 times. I just love it. I've been there often enough. I don't go to see anything. I just go to be there. But there's an art exhibition called the Biennale every other year. And when you walk through this big gallery, where you come out is right here, right on this folded old waterfront. And so this is a drawing of that spot. And, you know, when I start into these drawings, you know, I give myself an assignment to try to finish it. Well, look at all these bricks in this thing. You know,
You had second thoughts halfway through that.
That turned out to be a lot of work to do that. But, you know.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah. So here's one. This is a 3-panel piece, and it's a 4th of July party I went to. So it's in 3 separate frames, and all hanging side by side. You'll see this thing show up in another picture that I did.
That's neat, and it kind of represents a little more of a whimsical or cartoony sort of feel to it.
It does. And when you see, you know, the 3 panels, and the people are very distorted in this. And what it came from, if you ever do that panorama shot with your iPhone camera, where you're supposed to hold it steady.
Yeah.
Well, this is when you don't hold it steady. Twisting it like this, everything comes out all distorted. I did that intentionally. And then I did the drawing from that.
That is cool. You know, when I was in college, we played around with those Polaroid cameras that you could then manipulate after they came out of the camera. This is like using modern technology to do the same kind of game.
Yeah. Using it the wrong way, you know. Like you'd think a 5-year-old kid would screw it up like that. And I did it intentionally. This is my self-portrait. Okay, there's an unusual thing about, and this, I say this is a drawing of the t-shirt more than a drawing of me. It's a really cool t-shirt. But in this drawing, I only drew one leg. This is all in shadow. This is my crutch. I use crutches, by the way. I've got MS, so I always walk with 2 crutches. I've had it a long time, and somehow I've survived it. But I didn't draw the leg, only the shoe. But somehow your brain tells you that there must be a leg there, so it kind of tricks your eye.
And did you do that? Was that the design, or did you, as you were working on it, somehow realize, hey, I don't have to do that?
Yeah, it happened like that. I'm going, wait a minute, it's a black leg on a black background. I don't have to draw it at all. Anyway, it's drawing a self-portrait. It's hard to draw a picture of yourself smiling, you know. Mm-hmm. But I think I actually was able to do it.
You and Norman Rockwell.
Yeah. Yeah. Now this one, since where I went every year in Italy is to Milan to have a close friend that lives in the city in a 500-year-old apartment. And I couldn't go during COVID. So what I did was draw a picture of the neighborhood. So it's almost like being there. And this is, I drew 2 panels. The intention is to hang it in the corner of the room. And I've never seen a picture in the corner before, but this is it. This is my friend's apartment right here. This is a canal in Milan. The canal was designed by Leonardo, and it's still working. And this is my wife here and her friend. This is my buddy that lives there. Another one of my friends is over here running on the. So it's people that I know, but this is a spot I love going to. And when it's hanging in the room, it creates a really, interesting. And these are each one of these panels is 40 inches wide. So it's pretty big.
Yeah. So, and you get that illusion of being in the space.
Yeah. And I took this snapshot of it hanging in the corner of the room. Now, I haven't quite figured out how to frame it yet, to frame it around a corner, but yeah, I will eventually. Anyway,
well,
for now,
thanks.
just hanging out.
When we're talking now next about your woodworking, you're going to get some. You're going to have to figure that out.
Yes, I'm going to make my own frame. And then let's see, I got one more here. Now this is what I just finished. This is a commission that I did for some people who look out at the bay. They can see the ferries come and go. They have a beautiful view from their house. And when I went over to their house, they talked all about how they see the ferries. It's just that they love that about the house. And so they wanted maybe some drawing that about the ferries, not just a picture of the ferry, but something. So that was the assignment, is to think of something. So this is the thought I had. I was riding the ferry one day and I noticed I could see their house from the ferry. Well, if you can see the ferry from their house, the reverse would be true. So I thought, I'm going to do a drawing on the ferry looking back at their house. So when they look out at the boat, they can see what the people on the boat are seeing when they're looking back. This was the idea. I told them about it and they said, okay. So I did this drawing. This drawing is 5 feet wide by about 26 inches tall. And this is it. So it's coming right into the bay. Their house is actually right there. So that's what it looks like coming back. And the structure of the ferry, is really, to me, it's really interesting.
Yeah, that's great.
So anyway, I'm going to take this over and give it to him this weekend. They've been waiting quite a while for me to do it.
So they're out on Wing Point somewhere.
Yeah.
Great.
But
Can you let us know what medium you use or media
Yes.
you use, please? For those.
It's India ink and Prismacolor pencils. That's all of these are the same. They're drawn with India ink, which is real permanent and jet black. And then and colored pencils, a brand called Prismacolor.
What is your process then? You have the picture that you take the picture and then what?
Well, I usually take 3 or 4 pictures and then I edit the picture down, and sometimes I cut several pictures and put them together with different people or different views. So it's not exactly a picture. I sort of compose it, but I end up with a printout of the composition, and then I draw from that.
And you draw it directly on the paper?
Yes, I draw it in pencil first, then in ink, and then put the color on.
And these are big, many of them.
They're big. They're big.
I'm sorry,
And I draw lots of this. I used to draw completely freehand, but now I actually use a straight edge a lot to draw against. And the reason for that is I have MS, and the coordination in my hand is not
Oh,
as good as it used to be. It's compromised. However, I'm still able to draw, obviously, because I developed a style where to compensate for that.
sure.
So I'm sure people could see the work and never imagine that the person doing it had any sort of physical compromise, but I do. I just work around it.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Warren. Thank you.
And it's
Yeah.
like working around it sounds like some sort of a definition of art.
It's a workaround, yeah. But the real story of my retirement is not drawing, because I always did that. Now these are much more elaborate than I used to do, and they're better than what I used to do. But the big change for me happened when, several months after moving here, a friend said, well, there's this place called the Barn, and I think they have an open house this weekend. Well, it was the first weekend that they opened to the public so people could see it. So I drove by there. Well, if you've ever seen the place, geez, it's like a trade school. It's a big, really elaborate building. So I went in and went down into the wood shop, and I'm walking around in there, and the wood, they must have $500,000 worth of tools in that wood shop. It's the best equipped wood shop I've ever seen. It's better than most commercial shops. And I looked at this little sander, and and there was a sign on it that said, be careful with this tool, it costs $400 to replace. Sort of a reminder. And then I asked the question, well, how much does it cost to join? Well, about $400. I thought, geez, I can only buy one tool. I can use all. It just seemed like the most screaming bargain I've ever heard of. So even though I never worked in a shop, I thought, what the hell, I'm going to join. Well, that was the beginning of, now I know how to design things, and I like furniture. I like furniture design, but I've never done it. So, and I'm living in a condo that I did not design. I sold a house that I designed and lived in for 35 years. Now I'm living in a place somebody else did. So I thought, well, maybe I could make my own furniture. And then, at least I had something to do with it. So this is the first piece I made. It's a table that it's L-shaped, so it kind of goes around the side of the couch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And when I started this, I didn't know how to use the table saw. I had to have one of the guys tell me how to do that. But I, spent a lot of time working carefully, and lots of people just ask them, well, how do I do that? And so this is the first thing that I did. And, it turned out pretty good.
Yeah.
And there's one of these at the other end of the couch like that. Okay.
Okay.
And some of it is painted and some of it is finished wood. Now, when you join the shop, first of all, you have to go through an orientation to see what they have. The second thing, you have to go through a tool certification where you demonstrate you know how to use the tool. You cut something on the table saw and see if you know. So I went through those, so now I can get into the shop, because they don't want somebody to get hurt.
Right.
But,
So having never done this, did you have somebody give you some lessons, or did you take one of their classes in advance of
I did
the
not.
certification?
I'm a fast learner, and like I say, I've been around tools in construction my whole life. I know what they are. I just never used them in anything other than the most rudimentary way. But there's all kinds of resources at the barn, and no one cares if you don't know how to do anything. There are all kinds of people there to help. And they even encourage people who have no experience to join. Now, there are people in the wood shop who are really accomplished, who is lifelong hobby for them, or maybe even their career. But there's also an intermix of complete beginners, which I was one of. So then my friend asked me to make a coffee table for him. Okay, so I designed this table and built it, delivered it to him. So now I got, the second thing I did was a commission from somebody else. It's like,
You're
it's
in
like
business
giving
now.
yourself an assignment. Now I have to do it.
Right.
And this turned out pretty good, but I had to buy a sheet of plywood, and the plywood was big enough to make two. So I got this done, and then I made one for myself. But when I cut this out of the plywood, you see this little triangle piece was a scrap left over. Well, out of that scrap, I made this. This little table, the top is cut out of that scrap. And the legs here, that sort of folded leg, I bought a bunch of IKEA furniture for my new place. And I ordered one extra door by accident. Well, I kept it. So I made this base out of the door. I sawed the cabinet door into these pieces and made the base. So this is a scrap and this is an extra piece. And here's a pair of those tables.
Those are fun. They look like they came right from 1956 or something.
They do, because of that shape. It's like mid-century modern, but this is what I have a different name for this. This is next century modern.
Right,
It's
22nd
not
century.
exactly like
Right.
the 1950s, but okay. So these turned out pretty good, and people really like these. I've sold a couple of them, and so I had lots of fun working on that.
Now, those are all plywood, you said,
Yes,
and the stanchions that are holding it up, they're plywood as well?
well, the doors are particle board doors, and then they have a surfacing. When you buy them at IKEA, they're about 2 feet square. They're made for a cabinet. So I just sawed those up on the table saw.
Cool.
So they're already finished. So this is my next project. This is a little table in the bedroom that has so I can put my clock on it. And this is glass, this panel, so that you can't see where the clock is plugged in. Well, this I made out of some myrtle wood I bought down on the Oregon coast. I bought a board down there and brought it home, and then figured out something to make with it.
Yeah, now you're a hopeless collector of wood.
Now I'm a hopeless collector. So when I got this done,
Warren,
made-
before you put that back down, I just have a question about that.
yes,
So it looks like you have a section up above, the regular table. What's the one down underneath there?
what this?
Yes.
That's a little. You can slide this door open, and there's a little compartment in there to store something.
And this is glass, you said?
And this is glass. It's black painted glass.
Uh-huh.
So you can see the black painted glass, you can see a stanchion, and then
Yeah.
you can see where
Yeah.
there's,
Yeah. Yeah, cool.
So in the other board that I bought 2 boards. The other board, I made side tables to go by the bed.
Nice.
And I used the black glass again here. So when you put a trash can under here, you don't really see it. And it has a drawer in it, which drawers are hard to make. So I discovered in this.
They are.
You know.
Very precise, right?
Yes, but it's really interesting wood. My phone is interrupting me here.
that's right, little crickets.
Okay, so here's a sheet that shows this in progress. So here I got all the pieces made. They're all laid out. This is like the day now I get to put the thing together. So I spent a lot of time figuring out exactly how to do this. And since I'm new at it, it's slow, right? And sometimes I have to learn how to use the tool by practicing before I make something. But anyway,
Yeah, I'll bet that before you started to cut some of this wood, you tried it on cheaper product.
Yeah. And again, lots of people there to help. If I can't figure out how to do it, I ask, and I usually get 2 or 3 different suggestions about tools to use. The other thing is the shop they have the manuals on all these power tools. And so the first time I use one, I read the manual. It's like, duh, read the instruction sheet. And that helps a lot.
Are you sure you're an American male? I think that's against the rules.
Mm-hmm. So after these pieces, I decided to take on something that this is a big project. It took a lot of time to build. This is a table in the entry to my place. And the top is made out of zebra wood. It's a big slab of zebra wood. And the legs are maple and a wood called wenge. And the name of this table is Crazy Legs. It actually looks like a female leg. And it also, at a glance, you wouldn't think this table would stand up. But it does. It's rock solid. It doesn't rock or anything.
That's amazing.
But the wood is zebra wood is just gorgeous. Mm-hmm. Really nice. And
so you've got the balance of that. It's like a mobile wood table.
Yeah. You almost never see a piece of zebra wood this big.
I saw the pictures up above too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. You can see where the 4th of July picture is in the entry hall.
Well, that's huge.
So this is my fabrication pictures of this while the thing was in the works. So, when I designed this piece, it's the way I used to do buildings. I carefully draw and dimension everything first so that when I start, I have a full set of plans about what I'm going to do, and I can figure out how I'm going to make all the joints and things like that.
Up in your upper left-hand corner of this picture that you're holding, Warren,
yep.
What are those things along the sides? Are they just holding the zebra wood or what? The dark things.
These are clamps. There's 2 boards that I glued together.
Oh, gotcha.
And so this is clamping it together.
Gotcha.
The shop has about 100 clamps, which you need a lot. So here's a project I took on. I made a cane into a crutch. This is what you'd call a forearm crutch. So it's more stable than a cane. So I carved this piece carved out of zebra wood. And it's curved and it attaches. This was a tough thing to carve.
And you're using, are you using equipment at the barn to do the carving?
Absolutely. And again, I never worked on anything like this before, but again, lots of people to suggest what tool to use, so forth. So
it's the perfect crutches for an art opening.
It is, yeah. And I need to use just a cane doesn't stabilize me enough. I need that forearm support.
What did you say, Reed? What kind of tool?
What kind of tool?
Yeah. What kind of tool did you use for the carving?
Well, some of it is carved. This top was made on the bandsaw, and then this part I used wood chisels. The barn has a section, a whole room of non-power tools. If you want to make something really difficult, sort of old-fashioned way. You can do it all with non-power hand tools. And that's what I used for all this stuff.
Wow.
You know,
How did you attach the stirrups or the holding?
this
Yeah.
thing is glued together, and then it's screwed into the cane.
Oh, okay.
Nice and solid.
Good and solid.
Yeah. So I'm going to show you a collaborative effort project that I was involved in, that barn. The police department sent one of their officers to the barn to ask if the barn could make something for them out of wood that they could knock on when they come and go from the station. And they explained that they have this superstition, they knock on wood whenever they come or go from the station. The officers do this. And that they just, you know, they can't, you know, once you start that, you know. So they thought maybe the barn could make something that they could knock on. And the other thing, it had to have a blue line on it, maybe. Because the police are the blue line, you know, between order and chaos. You know, that's the position they're actually in, you know, in our society. And so anyway, so they thought if it had a blue line on it, that would be good, but it has to be something out of wood. So what would that be? Well, 5 of us said, okay, we'll try to come up with something. So, you know, we came up with designs. Now, it turns out the piece we did is something that I designed, but it was built by actually 6 people participated in building it, in making it. And this is it. This is about 3.5 feet high. This is a chunk of English walnut. It's an old dead tree that grew on the island. And this piece of it was burned, and this is some weathered, you know, so we cut this thing up with these sides are all finished smoothly, and then this side has remained rough, and here's the blue line. And it's on a welded steel base. We have a welding shop at the barn. So it took a lot of people because the thing is so heavy, you can't lift one of the parts. So we eventually got the thing done and delivered it to the police. Now they're building a new police station, so this is going to end up occupying and this thing's going to last 200 years, and it's never going to wear out. So it is really solidly made, and it's going to get bolted to the floor, so it can't fall over. But this is a perfect barn project. You know, a bunch of people involved. There's like everybody in the team could potentially just do it themselves, but we did it together. And so, and somebody knew how to do the blue, and you know.
Yeah, I love the combination of skills coming together.
Yeah, that was great.
Much more fun that way too, huh?
It is. So this last one I'm going to show you is the barn has a jewelry studio, which is very well equipped, and you could produce beautiful pieces out of that. I mean, they can do castings and all kinds of stuff. So they have a certification program now that you could sign up and take a series of classes over the course of, I don't know, 9 months. And if you get through all of those, you can get a certificate attesting to the fact that you've learned all these different skills. So you could actually get a job in a jewelry manufacturing. You learn enough about it. So the students work in the class, and they also work at home. So they needed to have a work desk they could take home. So one of the guys in the shop asked me, would you be willing to design it? You know, they know that I design things. And I used to be an architect. They thought maybe I can do it. So I said yes. And, you know, I promised to do it. And then I'm thinking about it, now it's getting late. I really need to get this done. And geez, I got sick and I ended up in the hospital for 5 days. And I was supposed to get this thing done. So I'm laying in the hospital going, geez, I let these people down. They wanted me to do. So I sent them an email saying, well, you know, when I get better, you know, is it done or can I still work on it? They said, no, they can wait. So the day I got out of the hospital, I designed this thing. I had a lot of time to think about it. And we bought all the parts and everything. And it took 4 people to build it. Because we made 6 of them. Okay. Here they are.
Nice.
And there's a drawer that slides into here that you pull the drawer out when you're working on the jewelry. So any dust particles are caught by that, because the dust might be solid gold. You don't throw the dust away. You save everything. And this thing is put together. You can take it home in parts and then put it together because it's too bulky to get in your car. Here's the back. And here's a group of them in the shop. And the thing worked. You know,
that's great.
You know, it did. We got it all together, and it's made in a way that you can easily take it apart, put it back together. And the kids now have them at home, the people who are in the class.
Yeah, we did have a conversation with Nance Allen earlier about the certification and the work she's done with jewelry.
Yeah. So this, you know, I designed this for her, and when we got it done, I must say she was thrilled. I think it exceeded her expectation. And, you know, just to have some group of people make something for you is a nice feeling. It felt really good to work on it because she was so thrilled by it, so appreciative of our effort. But so since I joined the barn, starting from scratch, I had a show at the Island Gallery of my furniture and drawings, and sold a couple pieces of furniture. So I'm kind of the poster boy for how you can start from zero at the barn and actually make something interesting.
Yeah, you're now someone I would go to.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure it out.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, I've encouraged lots of people to overcome that awkward feeling of, you know, when you start something, you don't know anything, that's okay at the barn. As a matter of fact, they're all set up for people like that. It's an unbelievable resource. So I really like the place. So now when people ask me, now that you're retired, what are you doing? I say, well, I'm designing and building furniture, and I'm an artist. Now, I must tell you the story. When I had a show, I had 6 pieces for the show. I went to the frame shop to frame all of them. And when I picked them up, the guy says, well, because it's all 6, you get the artist discount. I thought,
No.
that proves it. I got an artist discount. I guess I can say I'm an artist.
Yeah, tough now.
And the fact that I had a show, I just wanted to see if I could do it. You know, it's like, I don't want to be an artist that sells a bunch of stuff. I grew up in a household of people involved in art. My mom was an art teacher and a painter, and we had a lot of friends that were doing it. You know, so I just felt like
now you're all grown up.
Yeah, it just felt like, you know, I could do it. And, you know, who'd ever think that when you retire that you would accomplish things you were not able to do while you were working?
Well, there was no time then.
Yeah, there was no time.
Yeah,
it's like old dogs can learn new tricks.
We prove that all the time at the Senior
They
Community
really can.
Center.
Yep,
And
that's
I think, and I think it's true also, obviously, with the Bainbridge Artisans Resource Network.
And another issue I have, you don't see me walking around, but I use 2 crutches to walk. I'm not very fast, and my balance is terrible because of my MS. And somehow, if I need to carry something, I never have to ask. There are people at the shop that immediately step up to help. And I can easily overcome that issue. And again, there might be people who don't want to take part in this because they think, well, I'm compromised in some way, so they don't want to do it. Well, that shouldn't hold people back. Just like I learned to draw, I draw better now than I did when my hand worked perfect. And working in the shop is completely acceptable, whatever your physical abilities are.
Well,
Again,
when you were working,
yes.
you were away from the home because you were working. Now, are you away from home more than you were before?
Well, fortunately, the open shop times that you can go in and do whatever you want, it's 3 days a week. They have that. So I don't go every day.
Oh, okay.
But
So
I do spend a lot of time there. I do.
So you do get seen by your family then?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I have a big circle of acquaintances and friends that I made at the shop
Mm-hmm.
and at the barn in a very interesting way. Most of the people in the shop are retired or are used to do something different, but it never comes up like, what did you do before you worked in the shop? It just, no, it's like, for some reason, it's not a topic of conversation. Like I found out the guy that I've been working next to, is a retired heart surgeon, which explains why everything he built was curved because there's no straight lines in a body. I worked next to him for 2 years before I had any idea. It just never came up. So it's a very interesting group of people for that reason, that most all of us did something totally different in our life. And now we're all hanging out together doing woodwork.
Well, thank you for hanging out with us and going through this material. Wonderful, wonderful pictures, and it's so impressive to see what you've done. And I'm happy for you. It sounds like a wonderful life you're living right now.
Yeah, it is. Who'd ever think?
Thank you, Warren. It was fascinating.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you so much. I'll look for your stuff around.
Okay.